The great chamber of HFY was the largest room Ambassador Elena Vasquez had ever seen. It stretched so far that the far walls disappeared into a soft blue mist. Floating platforms held representatives from 142 different species. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some looked like nothing Elena could describe with human words. All of them were looking at her. Elena stood on humanity's platform. It was small and placed near the bottom of the chamber. This was not an accident. The Galactic Concord had rules about where new species sat. Humanity had joined only 73 years ago. In a room full of civilizations that measured their history in thousands of years, humans were babies. Today, the Concord would vote on whether humans could expand to the Outer Rim territories. Dozens of empty worlds waited there. Worlds with clean air and fresh water. Worlds where humanity could grow and build new cities. Elena had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. She had followed every rule. She had filled out every form. She had smiled at species who looked at her like she was an insect. The High Speaker of the Velithari Dominion rose from his platform. His name was Kethvorin, and he was tall and thin with gray skin that looked like stone. His eyes were completely black, and when he spoke, his voice filled the chamber like thunder. "We are here to discuss the human request," Kethvorin said. He made the word human sound like a disease. They wish to expand. They wish to grow. They wish to spread across the stars like they spread across their own world. He paused and looked directly at Elena. "Let us remember what humans are," he continued. "They are a species so broken, so damaged, that they spent 10,000 years killing each other. They fought wars over land they stood upon. They burned their own cities. They poisoned their own air. They came to the stars not because they were ready, but because they had nearly destroyed their only home." Soft laughter rippled through the chamber. Elena kept her face still. She had been trained for this. She would not react. "They call themselves civilized now," Kethvorin said. "But we have seen their history. We have seen what they do when they want something. They take it. They break it. They ruin it." He spread his long arms wide. "And now they want the Outer Rim. They want more room to spread their violence. I say no. I say we have tolerated these primitives long enough." The laughter grew louder. On a platform to Elena's left, the Scythian representative spoke up. The Scythian were small creatures with too many eyes and voices like breaking glass. "The humans live such short lives," the Scythian said. 80 years. Perhaps 100. How can such brief creatures understand the responsibility of shaping worlds? They are like insects. They are born, they breed, they die. Nothing more. More laughter. More nodding heads and waving tentacles and clicking sounds that meant agreement. The Orvani representative floated forward on its platform. The Orvani had no solid form. They were clouds of glowing gas that somehow thought and spoke and considered themselves very important. "Earth is a death world," the Orvani said. "The gravity is crushing. The weather is violent. Predators fill every corner. Only broken biology survives such a place. Only desperate, frightened animals come from death worlds. We should not be surprised that humans are violent. We should only be grateful that they are weak." Elena raised her hand, the universal sign for requesting permission to speak. She waited. Kethvorin looked at her with his black eyes. For a moment, something like amusement crossed his stone face. "The human wishes to speak," he said. "How touching. How brave." He turned to the chamber. "Shall we allow it?" The vote was quick. Red lights across the chamber. Permission denied. Elena lowered her hand. She had expected this. She had prepared for this. But the anger inside her was harder to control than she had imagined. "I will now propose new measures," Cathoran announced. The humans have shown that they cannot be trusted with expansion. Therefore, we must protect the galaxy from their ambitions. I propose new restrictions on human travel, new limits on their trade, new controls on what technology they may purchase or develop. The proposals appeared on screens across the chamber. Elena read them quickly. The restrictions would cut humanity off from half the galaxy. They would freeze human technology in place for centuries. They would make Earth a prison. All in favor? Cathoran asked. Green lights filled the chamber. 131 species voted yes. 9 voted no. 2 did not vote at all. The motion passes, Cathoran said. He looked at Elena one final time. The humans will learn their place. They will learn that the galaxy does not belong to them. They will learn humility, or they will learn nothing at all. Elena stood very still. The chamber was quiet now. Every eye and sensor and consciousness focused on her. They expected tears. They expected anger. They expected a primitive display of emotion. Instead, Elena spoke 5 words in a voice as calm as still water. You will regret this moment. Then she turned and walked off her platform. She did not look back. She did not respond to the laughter that followed her. She walked through the doors of the great chamber and into the corridor beyond. Her assistant, a young man named David, was waiting for her. His face was pale. Ambassador, what happened? What do we do now? Elena pulled out her communication device. Her hands were steady. Connect me to Earth. Priority 1. Direct to the Governance Council. What are you going to tell them? Elena looked at David. For the first time, she allowed herself to smile. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just made a very important decision. I'm going to tell them the truth, she said. I'm going to tell them that we tried. We followed their rules. We respected their traditions. We smiled while they spat on us. And they still did this. She began walking toward the shuttle bay. David hurried to keep up. The council will have options to consider, Elena continued. They will need to decide what kind of species we want to be. Do we accept these chains? Do we bow our heads and become what they think we are? Or do we show them what we actually are? 6 hours later, her report reached Earth. 12 hours after that, the United Governance Council voted. The vote was unanimous. 24 hours after Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked out of the Concord chamber, every treaty humanity had ever signed was formally and officially canceled. Every agreement was void. Every promise was broken. The galaxy had pushed humanity away. Now, they would discover what they had pushed. The Concord did not understand what they had done, but they would learn. They would all learn. 3 days had passed since humanity withdrew from the Galactic Concord. On Axis Prime, the representatives told each other that humans were having a tantrum. They said it was typical primitive behavior. They said Earth would come crawling back within a week. High Speaker Cathoran ordered a diplomatic ship sent to Earth. The ship carried a message that was equal parts threat and false kindness. It told humanity to apologize, to accept the new restrictions, and to be grateful that the Concord was willing to take them back at all. The ship never reached Earth. At the edge of the Sol system, far beyond the orbit of Neptune, the diplomatic vessel encountered something unexpected. A wall of ships blocked their path. Not the small patrol craft that humanity was allowed to have. These were massive vessels, each one larger than anything humans were supposed to build. Their hulls were dark and covered with weapons that the Concord sensors could not identify. The diplomatic ship's captain sent a confused message back to Axis Prime. Before anyone could respond, the human ship spoke. You are not welcome here. Turn around. Do not return. The diplomatic ship turned around. It did not return. Deep in the frozen darkness of the Kuiper Belt, far from any planet, Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the battleship Prometheus. Through the viewing window, she could see hundreds of ships coming alive. Lights flickered on across massive hulls. Engines that had waited for decades began to glow. This was Project Prometheus. 50 years of secret work. 50 years of hiding. 50 years of building while smiling at the galaxy and pretending to be weak. Admiral Tanaka was 62 years old. She had spent her entire military career preparing for this moment. She had never believed it would actually come. Part of her had hoped it never would. Admiral, her second-in-command, said, "All 400 ships report ready status. The fleet is operational. 400 capital ships. Each one twice the size that the Concord treaties allowed. Each one carrying weapons that combine the best technology of a dozen species, improved by human engineers who were never supposed to be this clever. Each one equipped with faster-than-light drives that were 3 generations more advanced than anything humanity had officially shown the galaxy. And that was just the beginning. What about the defense network?" Tanaka asked. "Active. Every approach to Earth is covered. The satellites are armed and scanning. If anyone tries to reach the inner system without permission, they will be stopped." Tanaka nodded slowly. She thought about the treaties that humanity had signed so many years ago. Those treaties had limited everything. How many ships humans could build. How powerful their weapons could be. What technology they could research. The Concord had explained that these rules were for everyone's safety. They had said that young species needed guidance and control. Humanity had smiled and nodded and signed every document. Then they had gone home and done exactly what they wanted. The asteroids of the Kuiper Belt were perfect hiding places. Hollowed out and converted into shipyards. Hidden from every scanner. Protected by layers of false signals and careful misdirection. The Concord never looked because they never imagined that humans would dare. That was their mistake. Humans always dared. On Earth, Defense Minister Shen Wei stood in the broadcast center beneath the mountains of Switzerland. The room was filled with screens showing the faces of Concord leaders across the galaxy. They had demanded an explanation. They had demanded to know what was happening. Chun was about to tell them. "Representatives of the Galactic Concord," Chun began. His voice was calm and steady. "For 73 years, humanity has been a member of your organization. We followed your rules. We obeyed your restrictions. We accepted your insults and your limitations. We did this because we hoped that one day you would see us as equals." He paused. On the screens, alien faces watched with confusion and growing concern. "3 days ago, you showed us the truth. You will never see us as equals. You will never give us respect. You will never allow us to grow. So we have made a decision. We will stop asking for permission." Chung pressed a button. New images appeared on every screen. The Prometheus fleet. Ships beyond counting. Weapons beyond measuring. Technology that the Concord had never seen before. "For 50 years, you told us what we could not build. We built it anyway. You told us where we could not go. We mapped every path. You told us who we could not become. We became something more." The images kept changing. Factory ships. Carrier vessels. Weapons platforms the size of small moons. The Concord representatives stared in shock. "The treaties you loved so much protected you from us," Chung continued. "They kept our hands tied. They kept our strength hidden. 3 days ago, you ended those treaties. You broke those chains. You did this because you thought we were weak. You thought wrong." High Speaker Kethvorn's face appeared on the main screen. His stone-gray skin had become pale. His black eyes were wide. "This is impossible," Cathvorin said. "Our inspectors checked your systems. Our sensors scanned your space. You could not have hidden this." Chun smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Your inspectors saw what we wanted them to see. Your sensors found what we allowed them to find. You looked at us and saw primitives, animals, refuse." He leaned forward. "You never asked what animals do when they are cornered. You never wondered what primitives are capable of when they have nothing left to lose." "This is an act of war," Cathvorin declared. "The Concord will respond. We will assemble a fleet. You will do nothing," Chun interrupted, "because you have no idea what we can do. You have no idea what else we have hidden. You spent 73 years underestimating us. I suggest you stop now." The broadcast ended. Chun turned away from the screens. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, from relief. After 50 years of pretending, the mask was finally off. Across the galaxy, species that had laughed at humanity 3 days ago were no longer laughing. They were reading reports. They were watching videos. They were trying to understand how they had been so wrong. Some of them began evacuating their border colonies. Some of them started sending quiet messages to Earth, asking if there was still time to be friends. Some of them simply sat in silence and waited to see what would happen next. In the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Tanaka gave the order to move. The Prometheus fleet began its journey out of the shadows and into the light. 400 ships traveling together, a force that the galaxy had never imagined and could not ignore. The sleeping giant was awake, and it was hungry for change. The galaxy expected war. They expected human ships to pour across borders and burn everything in their path. They expected the primitives to act like primitives. They expected fire and death and chaos. They did not expect what actually happened. 3 weeks after the Great Revelation, Admiral Yuki Tanaka sat in her command chair aboard the Prometheus. Her fleet was scattered across a dozen star systems, but they were not attacking anyone. They were watching. They were waiting. They were following a plan that the Concord could not understand. "Report from Strike Group 7, her communications officer announced. The Volathari slave facilities have been located. 12 stations in neutral space. Over 40,000 captives." Tanaka nodded. This was exactly what they had been looking for. The Volathari Dominion had been running slave operations for centuries. Everyone knew about it. The Concord knew about it. But the Volathari were powerful, and powerful species were allowed to break the rules. The slaves were taken from weak species. Species that had no voice. Species that did not matter. Humanity had decided that everyone mattered. "Send Strike Group 7, Tanaka ordered. Standard Liberation Protocol. Disable the stations. Free the captives. Broadcast everything." 72 hours later, 12 Velocer slave stations floated dead in space. Their guards were captured. Their systems were shut down. And 43,000 beings who had been property were suddenly free. The humans did not keep this secret. They sent videos to every news network in the galaxy. They showed the chains. They showed the cages. They showed the faces of the slavers and the faces of the freed. They let the galaxy see what the great and noble Volathari Dominion had been doing in the shadows. High Speaker Cathvorin screamed for justice. He demanded that the Concord punish humanity for this violation of Volathari territory. But the videos were everywhere now. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds were watching slaves walk free. It was hard to demand punishment when your crimes were playing on every screen. This was the Tanaka Doctrine. Humanity would not attack the Concord directly. They would not start a war of conquest. Instead, they would expose every dirty secret. They would break every hidden chain. They would show the galaxy that the great powers were not as noble as they claimed. And then they would offer something better. General Marcus Stone stood on a platform above a crowd of 10,000 Torvani. The Torvani were small beings with blue skin and large dark eyes. They had tried to join the Concord 2,000 years ago. They had been rejected because they were not advanced enough. They had tried again 500 years later. Rejected again. Too primitive. Too simple. Not worthy. For 2,000 years, the Torvani had lived on the edges of civilized space. They had been raided by pirates. They had been ignored by the powerful. They had been told, again and again, that they did not matter. General Stone was about to change that. "I know what they told you," Stone said. His voice carried across the crowd through translation devices. "They told you that you were too small, too weak, too unimportant. They told you that the stars belonged to the great powers, and you would never be one of them." The Torvani listened in silence. Their dark eyes reflected the lights of the human ships in orbit above. 73 years ago, they told us the same thing, Stone continued. They called us primitives. They called us animals. They laughed at us in their great chamber and told us we would never matter. He paused and looked across the sea of blue faces. They were wrong about us. And they were wrong about you. Stone raised his hand. Behind him, a massive screen flickered to life. It showed a document, a treaty, an alliance. "Humanity is building something new," Stone said. "Not a concord that looks down on the weak. Not an empire that takes what it wants. We are building a family of species that lift each other up. A place where every voice matters. Where every world has value. Where no one is too small to count." The screen showed the words clearly. The Terran Compact. A new alliance. A new beginning. "The Torvani are the first species to receive this offer," Stone said. "Join us, not as servants. Not as subjects. As partners. As equals. As friends." The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then a sound began to build. It started as a whisper and grew into a roar. The Torvani were cheering. After 2,000 years of rejection, someone was finally saying yes. Across the galaxy, other species were receiving similar offers. The Malvari, who had been denied trade rights for 3 centuries. The Asini, whose homeworld had been declared a resource reserve by the Concord. The Kreth, who had been punished for daring to develop weapons without permission. Every species that the Concord had stepped on. Every world that the great powers had ignored. Humanity was reaching out to all of them. "This is their strategy," High Speaker Kethvaran said to his advisors on the Velathari homeworld. "They are not trying to defeat us in battle. They are trying to steal our galaxy from beneath us." He was right. And he was too late to stop it. Within 3 months of the first offer, 47 species had joined the Terran Compact. Worlds that had never mattered suddenly had powerful friends. Trade routes that the Concord had blocked were suddenly open. Ships carrying food and medicine and hope were crossing borders that had been closed for centuries. The Concord tried to respond. They sent diplomats to the new Compact members, offering better deals and making threats. But the diplomats found something they did not expect. They found loyalty. The species that humanity had helped did not want better deals from the powers that had hurt them. They wanted to stand with the humans who had set them free. On Earth, Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched the reports come in. New members join every week. New alliances forming every day. A new order rising from the ashes of the old. "They still do not understand," she said to her staff. "They think this is about power. They think we want to rule the galaxy the way they did." She looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. "We do not want to rule anyone," she said. We just want to make sure that no one ever has to feel the way we felt in that chamber. Small, worthless, alone. She turned back to her work. There was much to do. More species to welcome. More chains to break. More bridges to build. The Concorde had pushed humanity away. Now humanity was building something better. And every species they helped made the new alliance stronger. The great powers were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. But understanding was not enough. The galaxy was changing, and it was changing fast. Soon, there would be no way to change it back. The Concorde had finally had enough. For months, they had watched humanity grow stronger. They had watched their own members leave. They had watched the Terran Compact spread like fire across the galaxy. Now they were going to end it. High Speaker Kethvorin stood before the War Council on Axis Prime. 12 species had agreed to contribute ships. 12 of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in known space. Together, they had assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 2,047 ships. The Velithari War Master announced. Crewed by the finest warriors from a dozen worlds. Armed with weapons that have destroyed empires. This fleet will crush the human rebellion and restore order to the galaxy. Kethvorin looked at the holographic display showing the massive fleet. It was beautiful in its way. A wall of death spread across the stars. The humans have a convoy traveling through the Vantrais Null region, he said. Supply ships heading to their new allies. We will intercept them there. We will destroy them. And we will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Concorde. The War Council agreed. The fleet was given its orders. 2,000 ships began moving toward the Vantrais Null. Admiral Yuki Tanaka received the intelligence report aboard the Prometheus. She read it twice to make sure she understood. 2,000 ships, her second-in-command said. 12 species. This is everything they have. Tanaka nodded slowly. How many ships can we send to intercept? If we pull from all available positions, we can assemble 200. Maybe 210. 200 against 2,000. Tanaka almost smiled. They will think they have already won. Admiral, are you sure about this? Those are not good odds. Tanaka stood and walked to the viewing window. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Numbers are not everything, she said. The Concorde fights the way they have always fought. The same formations. The same tactics. The same thinking. They have not faced a real challenge in 3,000 years. They have forgotten what it means to fight someone who does not follow their rules. She turned back to her officer. Assemble the fleet. We will meet them at Vantrais Null, and we will show them what humans can do. The Vantrais Null was a region of empty space far from any star. It was dark and cold and perfect for a battle. The Concorde fleet arrived first. 2,000 ships arranged in perfect formation. A wall of metal and weapons and confidence. When the human fleet appeared on their sensors, the Concorde commanders laughed. 200 ships. Such a small number. Such arrogance to think they could win with so few. The Concorde fleet commander, a Velithari admiral named Sorath, opened a communication channel. Human ships, he announced. You are outnumbered 10 to 1. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared. Continue forward, and you will be destroyed. Admiral Tanaka's voice came back calm and clear. Thank you for the offer. We decline. Perhaps you should consider surrendering instead. Sorath cut the channel. He gave the order to attack. 2,000 ships surged forward. Their weapons powered up. Their targeting systems locked on. This would be over quickly. And then everything went wrong. The human ships did not fly in formation. They did not move like a fleet at all. They scattered like birds, each one moving independently, each one following its own path. The Concorde targeting systems could not track them. Every time they locked onto a human ship, it was already somewhere else. The first Concorde vessel lost its engines to a precise strike that seemed to come from nowhere. Then another. Then 10 more. Then 100. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They struck and vanished and struck again. What is happening? Soreth demanded. How are they doing this? His tactical officer's voice was shaking. Sir, their ships are coordinated by artificial intelligence. They are making decisions faster than our commanders can think. Every time we adjust, they have already anticipated it. They are always one step ahead. On the Prometheus, Admiral Tanaka watched the battle unfold on her display. Each human ship was connected to every other human ship through the tactical AI. They thought as one mind. They moved as one body. They saw every Concorde move before it happened and responded in milliseconds. Continue standard protocol, Tanaka ordered. Disable, do not destroy. Engines first, then weapons. Leave life support intact. This was the most important part. Humanity could have killed every ship in the Concorde fleet. They had the power. They had the technology. But that was not the point. The point was to prove that they were better than what the Concorde believed them to be. 4 hours later, the battle was over. 1,847 Concorde ships floated dead in space. Their engines were cold. Their weapons were silent. But their crews were alive. Every single one. The remaining 200 Concorde ships had fled. They carried the story of what had happened back to Axis Prime. 200 human ships had defeated 2,000 of the best the Concorde could offer. And they had done it without killing anyone. Admiral Tanaka opened a communication channel to the drifting fleet. Attention Concorde vessels. Your ships are disabled, but your life support is functioning. Rescue ships are being sent to assist you. You have 20 hours to accept retrieval. She paused. We do not kill prisoners. That is the difference between us. On the Velathari homeworld, High Speaker Kethvoron watched the battle recordings. He watched his fleet, the greatest fleet ever assembled, torn apart by a force 1/10 its size. He watched human ships dance through his formations like they were standing still. But the thing that frightened him most was not the technology or the tactics. It was the restraint. They could have killed everyone, his advisor whispered. They could have destroyed the entire fleet. Why did they not? Kethvoron understood. That was the message. The humans were not showing mercy out of weakness. They were showing that they could destroy the Concorde anytime they wanted. They were showing that they were choosing not to. They were proving that they were exactly what the Concorde had said they were not: civilized, controlled, moral. And that made them more dangerous than any primitive could ever be. In the corridors of Axis Prime, officers began speaking in whispers. Some of them talked about defection. Some of them talked about surrender. Some of them talked about reaching out to humanity before it was too late. The Great Concorde, the mighty alliance that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, was beginning to crack. And there was nothing that Kethvoron could do to stop it. The humans had won the battle. But more importantly, they had won the argument. They were not the monsters that the Concorde had claimed. The Concorde was. And now everyone knew it. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Vantry's Knoll. The galaxy was no longer the same place. It would never be the same again. The Galactic Concorde still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had been. 43 species had withdrawn in the weeks after the battle. They had seen what humanity could do. They had seen what the Concorde could not do. The choice was easy. The Velathari Dominion was falling apart from within. The species they had conquered and controlled for centuries were rising up. Weapons appeared in rebel hands. Weapons that no one could trace. weapons that worked very well against Velothari soldiers. The Dominion was fighting a dozen wars on a dozen worlds, and they were losing all of them. On Axis Prime, the great chamber that had once held representatives from 142 species now held less than 90. The empty platforms were a constant reminder of how much had changed. Ambassador Elena Vasquez returned to Axis Prime on a warm morning in what Earth called September. She did not come as a representative of the Concord. Those days were over. She came to announce something new. The chamber was quieter than she remembered. The laughter was gone. The mockery was gone. The aliens who had spit on humanity now watched her with fear and respect, and something that might have been regret. Elena stood on a platform in the center of the chamber. Not at the bottom where humans had been placed before. In the center, where everyone could see her clearly. "I stand before you today not as a member of the Galactic Concord," she began. "I stand here as a representative of the Terran Compact." Screens around the chamber flickered to life. They showed a map of the galaxy. Large sections were highlighted in blue. The blue represented the Terran Compact. It was not larger than the Concord yet, but it was growing every day. "The Terran Compact is built on simple principles," Elena continued. "Every member has an equal voice. Every species has value. Strength is used to protect the weak, not to crush them. Trade flows freely. Knowledge is shared openly. And no one, no matter how powerful, is allowed to enslave another." She looked around the chamber. So many faces she recognized. The Scythian who had mocked human lifespans. The Orvani who had called Earth a death world. They were silent now. 87 worlds have joined us as of this morning, Elena said. More are coming. We do not force anyone to join. We do not threaten. We simply offer something the Concord never could. A chance to matter. A chance to grow. A chance to be part of something that does not ask you to kneel. She paused. The Concord may continue to exist. That is your choice. We will not attack you. We will not conquer you. But we will no longer pretend that you are the only path. The galaxy has options now, and many are choosing us. The announcement was over. Elena walked out of the chamber. This time, no one laughed. Later that day, she received a message. I-Speaker Keth Voren requested a private meeting. Elena agreed. They met in a small room on the lower levels of Space Prime. No guards. No advisors. Just the two of them. Keth Voren looked old. His gray skin had become almost white. His black eyes had lost their fire. The proud leader who had mocked humanity 6 months ago was gone. In his place was someone tired and broken. You have won, Keth Voren said. His voice was soft. We did not want a war, Elena replied. We never did. You chose this. Not us. Keth Voren was silent for a moment. Then he asked the question that had haunted him since the Battle of Van Try's Knoll. How? He said, how did you do it? How did you hide so much for so long? Our inspectors checked everything. Our sensors scanned every corner of your space. You could not have built what you built without us knowing. Elena looked at the old alien. She could have hated him. She had every reason to hate him. But looking at him now, she only felt tired. You saw what you wanted to see, she said. When you looked at us, you saw primitives, animals, violent children playing with toys they did not understand. You never asked what those violent children might be capable of. She leaned forward slightly. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other. 10,000 years of war and pain and learning. We learned how to plan. We learned how to wait. We learned how to hide our strength until the moment it mattered. You thought our history made us weak. It made us patient. Keth Voren shook his head slowly. We could have been allies. We could have worked together. Could we? Elena asked. When we asked for respect, you laughed. When we asked for opportunity, you denied us. When we asked for justice, you spat in our faces. We did not want this war. We wanted to be friends. But you never gave us that chance. She stood. We were not hiding our strength because we wanted to trick you. We were hiding it because we hoped we would never need it. We hoped that one day you would see us as equals. We hoped that one day we could show you who we really were without fear. She walked toward the door. You made the choice for us. You forced us to reveal what we have built. And now the galaxy will never see us as weak again. She stopped at the door and looked back. Thank you, she said. Cathvorn's eyes widened. Thank you. For what? Elena smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was something else in it too. Something that looked almost like gratitude. For pushing us. For forcing us to stop hiding. For showing us that we could not win by playing your games. We are stronger now than we ever would have been if you had treated us fairly. She opened the door. The Velathari Dominion is falling. Your allies are abandoning you. Your power is fading. But you will survive. Your species will continue. We are not like you. We do not destroy those who surrender. We do not crush those who are already beaten. She stepped through the door. Goodbye, High Speaker. History will remember you as the one who woke the sleeping giant. I hope that brings you some comfort in the years to come. 50 years later, the Terran Compact had grown to include over 200 member worlds. Species that had once been ignored now had voices. Worlds that had once been exploited now had protection. The galaxy was not perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better than it had been. On Earth, in the Memorial Plaza of Geneva, a statue stood. It showed Ambassador Elena Vasquez walking out of the Concord chamber, her hand raised, her back straight, her face calm. Children came to see it. Teachers brought their students to tell the story. Visitors from 100 worlds came to pay their respects. The inscription at the base of the statue was simple. 5 words carved in 100 languages. They laughed. We built. They learned. Elena Vasquez had died 20 years ago, surrounded by friends and family and colleagues. She had lived to see the Terran Compact become everything she had dreamed it could be. She had lived to see humanity take its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as builders, as protectors, as friends. In the great chamber of HFY, the Concord still met. It was smaller now, quieter, but it still existed. And sometimes, when the representatives looked at the empty platform where humanity had once stood, they remembered. They remembered the day they had laughed at the primitives. They remembered the day they had learned the truth. And they made very sure to never laugh at anyone again.